Hi. Are we live? I think we might be live. I hope we are. If we are, my name is Tony Saunders, and I am here with Helen Savor. But unfortunately, Helen today is feeling a little under the weather, so she will be leading us from behind the scenes and keeping this program on schedule. But we are here to give you the inside scoop on third-party material and supplements on Pathfinder Infinite. So welcome to Infinite Reviews with your Infinite Insiders. And today we are lucky enough to be here with the Gallant Goblin, Grady, and Theo. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Thanks for having us.
I'm well. I am getting to talk about a very exciting new book that hit only 20 days ago. I think it was end of March, right when we launched, and we were lucky enough to try to get you on books as soon as possible to talk about this. So very excited.
Time is imaginary. We have no idea. Time stopped existing around March 2020, and it's not started up again.
That's so true. That is so true. Speaking of time, I mean, the Gallant Goblin has been at it for a long time. But when did the Gallant Goblin start? When did you all kind of, what put together this powerhouse that you kind of built?
I don't know about powerhouse, but we got started around 2017. For a couple of reasons, Grady has been an amateur filmmaker for quite a while, entered a lot of films into some contests and won some prizes, but hadn't had a lot of opportunity to really make a lot of films, because to make a film you really need a team, and we didn't really have a team put together to do all the other parts necessary to make a movie. But we had a lot of equipment, we had a lot of software, and we wanted a chance to kind of try it all out and just kind of get some experience with it. And we had just gotten into Dungeons and Dragons, and we were really excited about the minis of D&D. Like, I like the little tactile things with board games and get to hold them in your hand, and it just made the game so much more imaginative for me. It sparked my imagination to have those little figures on the playing board. And they were released in a lot of randomized booster boxes, and so you never really knew what you were going to get, and there wasn't a lot of resources online to let you know, like, what can you expect to get out of this random box, and if you get something random, what can you do with it? And so we decided, hey, we could fill that gap and at the same time get some experience using all this equipment and software we've collected over the years. And so we're like, let's just go for it and give it a try. And that was a point in our lives when apparently we had free time. I don't remember what that feels like anymore, but we must have had some time back then. So we got it going. We were originally going to do board games as well. We were pretty big into board games too at the time, and we have yet to review a single board game because D&D and Pathfinder and all these other games took over our lives. And it's been since 2017, and we've kind of evolved from just doing YouTube videos into making our own supplements. Grady's getting to flex his writing muscles, and I've gotten to dabble in it as well a little bit. I never considered myself very creative, but I finally got to flex those muscles a little bit. So we've made some supplements, released them on Pathfinder Infinite and other websites. We've started making our own like little plushie toys, because this little plushies has always been something that had been close in my life. As an only child, these were my friends growing up. And so we decided to kind of, I don't know how we ended up dabbling in this, but we started making our little Kobold plushies, and that's been a lot of fun for us too. And now we just do everything, I think, and except for have free time or relax.
I mean, I will say, based on the stuff that you've been able to put together, it's probably a necessary evil. I think the world's a better place now, so it's probably fine. So
we do our best.
Yeah, I would say so. So I mean, so speaking of that, we're here to talk about specifically Queerfinder issue number 2, but issue number 1, also another smash hit. I want to say you all are gold on Pathfinder Infinite, which is no easy feat to cross. So in that same vein, I wanted to. So, what inspired you to put together Queerfinder? Because I feel like it's such an important series to be doing, as well as it just being a really great, like, they're just great books. So, but what made you want to put this project together? Like, what specifically inspired you?
Grady, why don't you take that one?
Well, I think it started in a not as serious way. I think, if I remember correctly, it was Aaron Shanks actually who made a tweet saying, this was when the Absalom Lost Omens book was coming out. And he was like, well, it covers so many locations in Absalom, but where's the guide to all the gay bars? And I think a few people
Aaron Shanks being one of the heads of marketing at Paizo.
And I think, and so we were like, well, I guess we could do that.
That's awesome.
But of course, once we for better or worse, we tend to go big once we start projects. And so we wanted to make sure that it was a quality project, a project that if it was that would try to make sure that underrepresented groups, both queer identifying authors, designers, artists, as well as folks of other identities within that category, got a chance to shine, and so that we were really featuring voices and not just ourselves making like a silly supplement. And so our the goal has always been to have like a mix of new up and coming folks, veterans, making sure that we have that mix to both appeal to our audience, provide a lot of different content, but also provide kind of a community where our various contributors can interact. We have a Discord server that lets them kind of throw ideas back and forth, provide some mentoring, provide some just sharing experiences in the industry as freelancers or employees or self-published authors, and kind of really make sure that they have an opportunity to showcase their stuff, to have things that they can include in their portfolio that looks high quality, that's exciting, that's edited. So far we're trying to pay good rates, so all of our art is purchased, all of our, at the artist's rates, all of the writing's done at 15 cents a word, editing at varying rates, but the developmental editing is 10 cents a word. So making sure that people get that upfront pay, and then if we ever recover the costs, which maybe, then we will also activate royalty share at that point, just to make sure that again, trying to kind of raise what folks can expect in the TTRPG industry, which does have problems with low pay and difficulty kind of making a living doing it, and also again to give all these authors opportunities to say, here is I've written work, I've been paid for my work, I'm a published creator that other people commission.
Absolutely. And I think that, first of all, those rates they're commendable. Like I won't say, I mean, maybe there are people that are swinging higher than that, but those are very, very fair and good rates, I would say. And the author list that you've put together, I mean, it's pretty impressive. Like you've got some big heavy hitters, like right out of the gate. You got Michelle Jones. I mean, you got Vanessa's in here. You've got. And then you've got people that, you like you said, that are up and coming in the industry, maybe don't have as many writing credits, maybe don't have as many art credits. And I think that you were able to put together something really special with a lot of brilliant and talented people. So, I mean, can you talk a little bit about like what it was? How did you go about approaching people? I got to think that the rates probably helped, but that it wasn't a difficult sell for maybe some of the people. But nonetheless, what was the process behind building the team behind both the books for Queerfinder?
So I mean, and so originally this was actually supposed to be issue 1 and 2 were supposed to be one issue, and then we too many people got excited about it. We were expecting more rejections, and so we ended up just having so much material that we were like, we need to split this if we're going to make any of this money back. And just because they were so long, and we didn't want people.
I was gonna say they're big books. 61 pages for issue number 2. I mean, that's a solid supplement.
And there's actually some more that are going to get patched in post-release, which is the nice benefit of the digital version. And then, but yeah, so and so this was back when Pathfinder Infinite first launched, and so there wasn't a lot to go off of at the time, and we were still pretty new to Pathfinder ourselves in terms of writing and even playing it to some extent. We had started off in the 5e community. So we were also like, we need to make sure that we have at least a few folks from Paizo who really know their work and really can tell us if we're on the right track or not. And so that was kind of where it started. And so Isabel Thorne was the first person that we got it with through Micah Welch, who's known as Micah Draws on Pathfinder Infinite. He does a lot of the stock art, known for like the gender bent gods and a few
the
other
gods. Yeah, both Callie and Micah are both very, very talented individuals. So you're already sounds like you came in with some heavy hitters right to start. So that's great.
Yeah, so that's where we started, and we were, and Isabel, and then they're both kind of on our core like administrative council now, like basically the managing editor team, along with Simone Saleh, who joined with issue 2 after seeing issue 1. She reached out to us, and she's one of the I think she's an employee editor at Paizo right now. And then we also have I should not be blanking on this right now. Slight nerves. And then we also brought up on Sean Banerjee from the Word Refinery. Again, mainly from a kind of on a 5e background, but does a lot of project management. Did a lot of editing work for Steamforged for 5e, and so he came in and kind of helped us kind of get better organized as well, and so kind of consulting from that perspective. And then so then at that point we had some folks that that we knew from various writing communities, and so we did start off on a kind of mostly invite basis, just because we didn't want to open it up too widely and then again run into issues where we handle the inflow if there was a lot of interest. And then we want to make, I'm bad at like rejecting people, not that we want, but again, like if we got 100 things in, there's no way they were all going to go in issue 1. So we're like, let's get it under control first, and then once we feel confident that we can put out this product, and then our goal going forward into the future issues is to open it more and more. And then we also spoke to several other folks like Ron Lundeen, Owen Casey Stevens, who are just really great allies and really focused on helping other people in the community. And so we also told them, like, hey, if you know anybody that you think would be good for this, that that isn't on our radar, please feel free to reach out as well. So there was kind of a little bit of word of mouth as well to kind of bring people in.
Well, and that probably, I mean, to talk to a little bit about what you already kind of mentioned before, was that you had so much interest and so much content in the first pass that you were like, oh, okay, we've really got to break this up into 2 books. And I really think that it's still, both issues work really well in their respective units. So you did manage to split that hair pretty well. But how did you decide which content to include? Like, what was the approach for the assignments for the book? Did you just let people, how much creative freedom did they have? Were there pieces that you knew you wanted to have in the book? I know it started as a response to Aaron's tweet, but how did it develop from there?
So it was, again, we wanted to make sure that if we were bringing people on, that it was, their authentic voices and their interests in something that they were passionate about. And so we basically told them, this is the general theme. We're gonna focus on Absalom as a location, probably bars and shops, but also, like, since it's coming out in the winter, like, some festival stuff is good as well. And so that was basically it. And then we asked the writers to just pitch us. And the only thing we really filtered for was if there was too much overlap. Like, if two people, ironically, we got several Crystal Hue pitches, which is the Shayla of Love's, Winter Solstice holiday. And then we ended up actually not having a single Crystal Hue article in either issue at the end. So that was interesting because, but otherwise, we did still, like, this issue alone has multiple Desna articles, but they focused on very different aspects of Desna. And so, even there, we were just like, we have a bunch of people who are really passionate about Desna, so let's go with it. And so there were a few additional articles that I kind of assigned to myself to try to fill in any kind of perceived gaps, maybe. And then, I assigned myself too much got scope creeped, and so we did bring in a few authors toward the end, Irene Bloodrose being one of them, to kind of take one of the things that I had an idea for and had commissioned kind of some designs for already. So we had art to use, but we didn't have any writing for it. And I was like, can you take this concept? But then even within that, like, they found parts of it that they were really interested in, specifically the theatrical dueling. So like there was like, there's these like sword fights and mutiny nights on a pirate ship, but it's like, it's mock fighting. And so like, they invented these theatrical runes of combat that you can affix to your weapons that causes them to switch to non-lethal damage. And then they went into kind of details on how the fights work and kind of the traditions around it and stuff. And so they were still able to kind of really put their own spin on the part of that bar that interested them.
That's awesome. That is so intriguing that we are going to have to start on the content just so I can get to that to that section, because I love the idea of like just having like a dinner and a show, right? Like that's just really that's such a brilliant way to kind of make that concept pop. So looking at right out of the gate, we have a absolutely immaculate cover. Like look at Shellen just right at the top looking gorgeous, but kicking it right off, coming out very strong, is the Zonzon doll from Michelle Jones, which I mean, first of all, the opening piece is very like, it kind of like almost it tells a tale right from the start. You already kind of like, you're interested, like, ooh, what's the a little child with a doll, like what's gonna happen. And so I feel like the energy is already kind of being brought even from the first image. But what was the goal with this particular chapter, and what do you think makes it what makes it special as an inclusion in this book?
Yeah, so I'm glad you called out the art, because that ended up being the thing that Michelle was the most excited about. And because obviously Michelle's article is fantastic.
Sure.
And so yeah, for like these authors, right? Like they pitched an article, and then we were saying, we're going to give you at least one art piece custom commissioned for your article. And Joe is super talented, obviously, and for all of our art pieces, we will have a credit on the art piece or on an adjacent page, kind of calling it out with the author. And it is in the digital version, it is hyperlinked. So if you click the artist's name, you can go to their portfolio page and learn more about them.
That's awesome. That's very kind for your artists to just, give them that attention right there on the page. So kudos for that.
We would love for everyone who contributed to this to get a lot more work, because they absolutely deserve it. And so like, I was able to just be like, hey, you two talk, and like, Michelle, tell them what you want, and I think that's a lot of freedom that for the art briefs and things that you don't always get on a project.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, Michelle was thrilled with what came out of this, and I'm super glad that she liked it. And the Zonzon doll itself, I think, actually, so I was wrong. This is a Crystal Hue tradition. It's just, it's not the festival itself, but it is an adjacent tradition.
Oh, okay.
And it is, it had a little entry on the Pathfinder wiki that I think always pops out to people, because it's like Crystal Hue, it's rainbows and love, and then suddenly there's this ugly doll that people take around, and you're like, wait, what is this? And it's Zon Kuthon, and so yeah, it's a. And I think this is actually following, I didn't realize this until recently, but I think apparently the Zonzon doll originated with Wayfinder magazine, which was another published, like fan-published magazine. So I thought that was kind of really cool, and that was something that then got officially brought into the Paizoverse, and then we got to riff on it more again as a new magazine, and so that was super cool. And so yeah, Michelle kind of went through and was like, what would be this Zonzon doll tradition? Because the idea is that you make this doll, there's a sibling for the day who kind of takes the doll around, and everybody gives it gifts or whispers like secrets that are about like good things that happened to them, or bad things that they forgave. And the idea is that eventually, at the end of the day, the Zonzon doll will be put out somewhere, and then it'll eventually reach Zon Kuthon and tell him about all the good in the world, and maybe that this will one day help bring Kuthon back into the fold, because he's Shaylin's brother who kind of fell and turned evil, and she wants to redeem him and bring him back. And so this is kind of her followers' ways of continuing that quest for her. And so Michelle kind of went through and was like, well, what would, Absalom's so big, right? You're not going to send a child through all of Absalom. So like each district has its own sibling, and then each district has its own tradition. So what does that look like? And maybe like, these Zanzan dolls disappear at night. So what would, who's taking them? Maybe there's an original Zanzan doll who like actually came to life and is like a piece of, Zankuthon's soul. Yeah. And what are some of the stats for this? She didn't stat it out fully, but kind of gave it some traits. I think the idea generally for designers is if you don't give it stats unless you want players to kill it. So I think it's the right choice probably for this.
I do think that the story and the tradition itself already sparks like the idea that somebody might play a puppet, like player character, or have like a puppet familiar that is I have, my goal is to get to Zankuthon and tell him of all the good in the world, and like maybe like running like a champion or something with that. Already like when a narrative, already sparks like that concept for character development. I mean, that's a gift right there. So I think this section in particular, really, really cool. Plus, like Theo, right? Kind of like a plushie, right? So love right there in a way, huh? A little bit of a nod. So
we almost commissioned a Zanzan doll for the art, but ended up not having budget for that.
Understandable. I mean, it's an immaculate section nonetheless, so I have to give it credit. Like, and it does spark that immediate joy. But this book is pretty big, so we are going to have to, sadly, we can't spend as much time with each awesome section as maybe we could if we had infinite time. But as Theo said earlier, time is an illusion. So
even on Pathfinder Infinite.
See, you were better at spotting it than me.
There.
It was right in my face.
It was right there.
But so
I just have a low bar for these things.
Top marks, got to give it to you. On the follow-up section, though, we go, first of all, cool image. It's just brunch, dating for busy queer professionals. This is the cutest picture, I think, ever. I never get my sunny side up eggs that perfect every time. Like each one of those is like not an egg broken, like the yolk is intact, but they look like they're having a lot of fun. So I do love that picture. And then it looks like we have a nice, wonderful picture of D'Alessandro on the. It looks. I'm assuming. Are they assuming the persona of a goblin, since this would be the Glimly. The glamour goblin. That is a tongue twister for me, but this title right here already sets the tone, doesn't it? It's just absolutely gorgeous. Like, it is flexing hard. It has some very nice looking lipstick and some very gorgeous looking jewelry and jewels. So but the intriguing thing, and I love about this section, is there's actually some goodies for the people looking for some crunch. Have some items coming in this section, which I love. So can we talk a little bit about this? Like, so it looks like this is by Couturial. So Couturial, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that, but I do love this section quite a bit. So what were the design goals here?
Yeah, so a few things. And so, and chat can feel free to call out if you have questions or want us to elaborate on something that we didn't touch
Please.
On. But so so in terms of diversity, right? Like we also wanted to represent a lot of different types of fiction, because this whole product is supposed to be themed as like an in-world travel magazine, which is where that It's Just Brunch comes in, because It's Just Lunch is like the first thing I think of when I get on a plane. Like, it's in every one of those magazines. So like, but yeah, so we so our goal was to have probably at least one cosplayer or real life personality in each issue as well. And Michelle Wynn Bradley was ours in issue 1.
Right.
And she contributed a character she played on one of the official Paizo actual plays, which was super cool. But obviously, like, Michelle super knows her stuff. She's super in like all the TTRPG world. And so for issue 2, we kind of decided, well, let's go a different direction. And so Elise D'Alessandro is a travel blogger and a fashion, like a plus size flat fashion influencer. And we met her on vacation. Actually, she works for
Nice.
an LGBTQ plus friendly company that does like buyouts of like resorts or cruises. And so called Vakaya. And so we were on there, and that's where and she worked there, and that's where we met her. But yeah, she's ready to stare on all the social medias, and so she does a lot of modeling. And so we reached out to her and was like, hey, do you want to do some sort of fantasy themed photo shoot, and dress up as a character? And her photographer at LA actually does play D&D, so she was all like, yes, I know what this is. She's like, I have no idea. You need to explain this to me. But we did, and we had no idea what they were going to give us. And so until the day we got these photos, and she's like, I'm a goblin. And we're like, this is amazing.
That's perfect. I mean, not gonna lie, the photographer did a fantastic job. Super charming photos too. And I love the content. Like, got some really, everybody likes new alchemical items just in general, so they're having quite a few of them are, I would say, fall into that category. Vanilla love, like, I'm a sucker for little puns like that. Like, that's fun. But I do love that there is, like, these new things that can kind of like expand the game, like Frizz Freedom, like, for people that are wanting to add, I guess, that other layer of alchemy, which is like, a little bit more narrative focused, I guess, instead of just all mechanical. Like, not everything has to blow up, right? So, and I think it's good to have more items that kind of have different options there. And I know it's not all alchemical items. Dragon feathers are in here, which is also a really cool item and stuff. So, but I do love that this section kind of like adds accessories, to being able to bring like those new elements to the game. So I really do love that. And the last photo, this one, that's super cute. So definitely a big fan of the Glimly. Shoot, let me make sure. The Glimly the Glamour Goblin. I got it that time. I think that was pretty safe.
Travels the world to make sure you look glamorous.
Perfect, right?
Yeah, that was the prompt that she kind of gave us, and we kind of ran with that to create the items. So the central goal for these items were non-combat consumables. Mm-hmm. But as you can see, if you go through them, there are definitely, they can definitely be used in combat, but we kind of wanted things that lent themselves to a variety of situations, social situations, that were still impactful and mechanically meaningful in the game, but, not necessarily just strict, like, bonuses to attacks and things like that. So you mentioned like the columnist name is, we actually have a group of fictional staff writers for the magazine, and one of the things we're going to add back to issue 1 is actually a biography for every one of them, and then Irene, who wrote the Pirate Barge article, also made one for the person that they wanted, because we basically gave every writer an option to create a persona if they wanted to, and some people did, some people didn't. So if they didn't, that's their real name. If they did, then there's additional things there. But yeah, so that's what it is. So in this case, I actually wrote most of this, but when I write something, I just use one of the staff members, whoever seems most appropriate. So Couturial is supposed to be our culture columnist.
Gotcha.
That elf. There will be that once we add it.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, that's really cool. Well, before, I do think we want to keep moving through the book, but I do want to say the living wig, I saw that at the end, and that is very, that slips in right at the end of the section, and all I can think of is that needs to be a familiar. Like, there needs to be a specific familiar. It's a tiny creature that's CR1. Like, I'm pretty sure that's someone do it. Like, just if you're listening out there, you infinite creators and/or my associates, it's a perfect shot for familiar right there. But as I said, moving on, we do have some more awesome sections to come up. The next one on our stop, which comes in with some really gorgeous art of some beautiful, I would say, probably they're definitely butterflies. I think butterfly over moth here. Maybe I'm wrong. I can never tell the difference. I don't know. And I'm colorblind, so it doesn't help. But the Eventide Sevenfold by Anne Richmond. Again, this kind of comes. Oh, it's obviously butterfly. It's Desna. Ugh, amateur hour over here. So, but I do love that this immediately, like these two images come in and they completely bring a different tone than the last two chapters that we've looked at already so far, and in a good and interesting way. Like I love that that as you're kind of going through this meal of a book, right, you're getting different flavors in each section. And this one, I love how it just kind of comes in really, like with almost somber and mystical, and like there's this layer of like depth to it. So can we talk a little bit about, everybody's favorite black butterfly, Desna looking all fly, if you will? What went into to this section, which I think might be one of my favorites in the book. It's
really so Anne is relatively new to Pathfinder, but very established in 5e, and then has played other systems like Vason, I think. Am I pronouncing that right?
That's so interesting because they clearly have such a grasp of Pathfinder lore with this Desna chapter, so that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, I mean, she
did produce
for Glass Cannon.
Okay.
I think so she's definitely kind of knows from the lore and things like that. But yeah, like she also wanted to have crunch, so there's like several characters statted out, including one who is a Absalom book NPC, who doesn't have a stat block in the Absalom book. And then she gave our editors a run for like because there's like a ritual, right? There's NPC stat block. There's a magic item. A magic item that is a giant reflection pool, which like when we were trying to figure out the bulk for this thing, it is a reflecting pool, like not as big as the one like in front of the Washington Monument, but it's like big. And like we could not figure out what the bulk would be. And I had to end up going to Rob Dane's Night of the Great Death adventure and find the guillotine from it. And then look up what its bulk was, how heavy is a guillotine, how heavy would a reflecting pool be, and then math it out from there. And that's how we got that bulk number.
But that's how we got to 1,600, to clarify. That's the bulk number for this, because it is a large item.
You're going to be encumbered if you try to.
I think that's more than fair. I do love, you did bury the lead a little bit. You're like, this reflecting pool is like, it's called Desna's Mirror. So it's a very important reflecting pool, and it is powerful, a level 20 item, but it is so cool. I'm not going to lie. Like, it has so many different properties. It can heal you. It can give you like a blessing of, like focus powers and stuff. So what a cool item.
Yeah, it's the center of the ritual that the article is about, which is this once-in-a-century ritual that allows one champion to go visit Desna's domain and speak with Desna, and passing through the Black Butterfly's domain to get to Desna. And yeah, like you said, it's a very serious, very somber thing, because it's very serious ritual, right? Very core to the Desnans. And then, there's the high priestess who's overseeing it. Her, I think, brother was part of the previous ritual that got interrupted by Zon Kuthon's followers and attacked. And so, like, her brother's actually in this, like, coma, and that they magically induced that they can't revive him from because of what happened. And now it's her goal to make sure that this next one goes off correctly in honor of her brother. And so it's just such a layered, like, there's this new lore and these emotions behind it and this whole story. And so I think Anne just completely knocked it out of the park. Very ambitious article, and lots of great mix of content in it.
It feels very complete, right? Like it has that narrative thread. It has, the tone that it comes in with the opening art, and then the mechanical pieces of it add not only that crunch that maybe people are looking for, how do I bring this to my game, but they help tie in the, the gravity of what it takes to be able to, do these things, like the ritual that, that brings you into the namesake of the, the Eventide Sevenfold ritual that brings you into the fold. So I do feel like how it's put together is very, very crisp in a way. Like, it has like a lot of, it feels very much similar to something that I would see in an AP in terms of the content, especially the way the sections are broken down towards the end. Like when we get to the gloaming and then it breaks down the sanctum like into its respective sections. That's very much like what I would see in like a Paizo bounty, or like one of their smaller like one shots, like the way they break down the sections. So the attention to detail on this is fantastic. And to be honest, going into that last section where we're talking about the different, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way from the observatory down to, the first floor of the sanctum. The map that you have, I would call it a map, or at least it's a diagram, right, of some sorts, is very cool at the end, that kind of gives you that brilliant, way to insert yourself into the world that you've just had described to you in the previous article. So, I mean, fantastic, like top to bottom. I really do love this section a lot. So kudos to Anne, very much, very impressive. And to you all for putting together such an excellent book. Who did do the art for this last section here? Is that mapped by Saga Mackenzie?
So Saga is both a genius and like terrifying in her talent. Because
often the same, often together, I suppose, right? The two.
Yeah, her maps are incredible, like the detailing, the borders that she puts on them, and just like, but she can knock out one of these in like a day sometimes. Like,
really? Wow.
Like the first time I worked with her, I told her like, oh, I want it's gonna be a giant floating scattered skeleton of a dead god with like that's morphing into the god's holy symbol and floating in the astral sea, and like and needs to be marked with 35 like different locations. And she was like, got it, and like gave me a sketch with an hour, and then the final version like within like 4 more hours. And I was like, what is and it looked amazing, like it looked beyond. And wow. So like anytime we have something complicated, like I'm just like, Saga, can you do it, or do you know someone who can do it? Because like this is ridiculous. But yeah, no, amazing, and yeah, just so lucky to get to work with her.
I mean, that I would say that the image, feels it. I would say complicated but elegant, right? Very well put together so that it's clear. It's like I have a great visual on each of the respective rooms. Like I know what's going on. So I think being able to create that kind of cohesion in the mind for other people, that is a special gift. So you all definitely, you struck gold there for sure. But as we do have to keep pressing forward with all of the awesome content in this book, we get to some more art of, I'm pretty familiar with this artist. They're very talented. I believe this is Micah's work, right? It has that signature Micah look. I love the hard lines and the no shirts, very common, right? So, and Micah's got that really colorful, like touches, and I love the way that Micah does the shades, like between the vibrant colors, but then like being able to add like that depth with the way they deal with the light in these scenes. And I think they've, being able to deal with the light in the next scene's pretty important. Nice little romantic setting here, so I assume.
Yeah, this is a continuation of like I think like an 8-page comic that Micah did for issue 1.
Oh, okay.
Kaden and Nethys first meet each other and have a liaison. Yeah, and so like I said, we wanted different types of content, so comics was definitely on there. I think for making something that long so quickly, like probably was a lot for Micah. So Micah was like, I'm gonna do a well, he said he was gonna do a smaller drawing, and then he does one later on that's like 12 characters in one image. So I don't know if that was actually that much easier, but but yeah, this is that post meeting, and now they're just causing trouble at the Chilexian embassy. So that's always
That's not
fun.
what the caption says.
Worshipper. Isn't that?
Well, not causing trouble. I think it's bringing freedom.
They're bringing freedom. Yeah, that's the.
Appreciate freedom being,
Depends on your perspective, I think.
But yeah, no, you can see the Starstone in the background because the embassy is across from it, and all that. So lots of lore built into it as well.
Brilliant. And I'm sure we'll get to see more of Mike as we continue to push through the book, but I did want to give a little shout out here because I definitely recognized those pieces. But not to jump too much further ahead, we're not going to go far. We're already at an oracle reading at the Night Butterflies Market by Azra RBL Hawthorne. And this one, again, with the tones, you all keep coming out with changing the emotion that comes into these articles. And the next one definitely brings a completely different vibe than the ones we've seen so far. And it's got this, hooded figure with a, in lantern light with, I would assume those are hero cards. Is that a good assumption on what would be on the table? Sorry, that would make sense to me. And given the harrower, dedication just came out, like maybe this will pique someone's interest for that specific piece. But the star knife in the center of the table appears to be looming over what may be happening next for it. It very much feels like this piece is the person reading the article is the one at the other side of the table, right? Like this is almost like one of those second person perspective approaches to writing, which I do love, that putting the reader that close to the action. Like that's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, actually, I don't think there is anything super specific in terms of what the cards need to be. So
sure.
Like if you used a hero deck, you could as well. But yeah, the idea here is that this is again with the Star Knife Desnan. And so Desna, they've got a traveling marketplace. And for the new year, set up in Absalom to try to give folks guidance for the coming year. And so when you visit this marketplace, you sit with Fiara, the lantern keeper here, and she does a reading for you. And whatever card she draws determines the specific stall in the market, which is tied to one of the Verizian zodiac signs. And that is your part of the marketplace that you go to. So you don't get to browse. You get fate, or Desna tells you what do you need, and then you go to this shop. The shopkeeper kind of works with you, and the items are all themed for that zodiac sign and the themes around that zodiac sign, which then they interpret for you in terms of what your goals might be for the coming year. And it's pretty open for interpretation, obviously. So the game master can kind of has wiggle room there, and obviously, if there is something in your campaign that you're trying to lead your characters through, or that is coming up, then you can rig the deck a little bit and use that to directly kind of foreshadow something, which I think it's a great tool set to give the GM. And then of course each shop has a sample suggestion list of items taken from official supplements, so you can find all of these on Archives of Nethys or the books if you have them, and so it gives an idea of what they can sell, and so it gives your players an opportunity to obtain a magic item as well.
I love that. Yeah, so that must mean the following section where we get to dive into the Cosmic Caravan Oracle deck. So these must be the 13, right? Or the cards that we could presumably get. And I do love the little suggestions, like right here with Thrush, like it mentions, the Everneed Pack, the Gloves of Storing, Traveler's Chair, like those being able to kind of like lead into ways that you can use these narrative hooks to kind of give players incentive is very cool. Also, again, really gorgeous section that, although it goes, from very bright colors, in the opening pieces, and then it moves into this kind of almost dark, obviously to accentuate the constellations. It is still feels very close, like it's a one unit, and it's very, very cool. So, I mean, do you all have a favorite? Is there like, which one of these do you think, which one is your sign? Like, what's your sign, right? Of the one in here, because I think they're all pretty cool.
I don't know if I don't. Do these signs correlate to our zodiac?
I don't know. You tell me.
The months and dates, right, of the Galarian calendar correlate directly to the real world calendar. But so I assume if they are, I don't remember if they actually give guidance on which dates each of these signs go with.
I'll Google it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fond of the dancer just because you can get a waffle iron from them, and I think that's an important part of it.
Really, that makes the most. I mean, how can you compete with a waffle iron? Like, honestly, I don't think there's judgment by default. I feel like that's very fair. That's also a cool sign too.
It is, and yeah. So shout out to Simone for on the editing pass. Some of these signs were slightly reinterpreted from the official Verisian one. In a few cases, there were senses of like them being maybe too gender coded or stereotyping in a way that could be improved upon.
Sure.
So she made some changes that I think very much still keep to. So yeah, the dancer was known as the daughter originally, and then she kind of just did a slight change on it. But I think it keeps the original intention while kind of updating it a little bit for second edition.
I love that.
All right.
No, that's brilliant.
I got this real fast. So Grady, you are the writer.
Okay.
Is the one that corresponds to you. The guarding the cosmic caravan who watches over his companions mounted on his painted steed. And then I am the stargazer, which is fitting because I am still reeling from the Picard finale earlier tonight, which made me very emotional. But yeah, the stargazer is thought of as either a fool or a prophet who watches the heavens, searching for lost treasure or new wonders. That sounds about right.
So Tony, when is your birthday?
I am a goat normally, so whatever a Capricorn would be. I don't.
What is your birthday?
It's January 10th.
You want to?
In case anybody wants to know.
That would now. And what is your social security number? No, you are the thrush.
Yeah, I had a feeling that I might be the first one, but I wasn't sure. I'm okay with that. I like. Everybody likes a cute little bird, right? Yearning for wonder and excitement. The herald.
Welcoming them with open wings.
I like that. Well, I welcomed you all here with open wings, right? Helen too. Although I don't know Helen's birthday off the top of my head. Maybe we'll have to find out what her sign is. Perhaps another time. But again, we have to push forward and look. We see Micah one more time. Look at this. And this must. Maybe not one more time. Again, we'll say again. This must have been the piece that you were talking about where it had the ensemble cast, because there is quite a few in this shot. It looks like 12 total? 13? 12 or 13.
Intentional for them to be a calendar. Although this is false advertising, Micah is not coming out with a calendar this year with the Star Watch theme.
Micah. Somebody's
Look, there's enough demand. Write him, and he may do it.
That's Micah at Micah Draws. Not what it is. But if you want to reach out to Micah on Twitter.
Yeah, at Micah on Twitter. Where's the calendar? Why?
Micah Draws.
On a Pathfinder calendar, though. Just not Star Watch thing. So keep an eye out.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll take what we can get.
We do his previous calendar up in the house, so...
Definitely. So is the next okay? I mean, it definitely looks like this could be Micah's style again, coming up next. But it's black and white, so it's harder for me to tell because I know I'm very used to Micah's color schemes. So is Micah again responsible for the image that follows right after that, or is this another artist?
So this is our double threat, Ben. Wrote the short story and illustrated it.
Gorgeous. Well, save some talent for the rest of us, Ben. Family engagement. So I'm assuming the engagement must be between these two lovely individuals that are reading I don't know those symbols, so I'll have to, I would assume it's a Galarian language that I don't know.
That is either. He may have snuck in an Easter egg.
That would be interesting to find out. What book are they reading? That's what we want to know, Ben. Can you tell us?
So this is Margot and Beatrice, and again, this is a continuation of an issue 1 short story that Ben also contributed, where they got engaged, and so this is a follow-up where Margot's going home to meet her just a regular family dinner, which always, that never goes poorly in fiction. And so it's just kind of another look at their life after post the proposal. And so the first story was wonderful and took place in a bar that was not finished in time for that issue. So the bar itself actually shows up in this issue. So lots of linkages. But it's a lovely little story, and I love that Ben is continuing the story of these characters, and we can maybe follow them as Queerfinder grows as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, and that Margot and Beatrice, they really have like that star power, like they have an interesting story to tell, and it's, they're entertaining characters to like, everybody likes a good love story, right? So I think that getting to revisit them in issue 2 and hopefully maybe, like starting to see more and more of them as time goes on is really cool. I do love that it pays attention. And speaking of awesome, like, duos that can be together, what it reminded me of Vellum and Lace, which is the ad we'll see right after this section, which in that these two characters are so, interesting, and they have such an important relationship to tell, but in a very, different way from Vellum and Lace, that maybe that could develop into like, its own storyline. So maybe Ben could put together like something akin to the, those where they feature in Queerfinder, but maybe the collection of stories can feature together, because I do think Margot and Beatrice are very cool. So very fun. Going past Vellum and Lace, shout out, Helen is one of the authors on this book along with Vanessa Hoskins, and it is a fantastic series. Can't shout it enough. Dustin Knight and Ron Lundeen also shouting out here for good reason. Definitely, two awesome pro tags, two sisters, one city, no wisdom. You can't beat a tagline like that. But not to linger, because we are pushing up on time, and I do want to make sure that we get to give every section of this book. And we come to the section that Grady teased to us earlier, I believe, right? Because this photo could be none other than the high femmes on the high seas. Is this where we get to do the party dream girl boat? Is this happening?
It is it is called the party barge. There
it is. There it is. The party barge. That's whoever came up with that name. Gold stars. That's pretty good. I love this. That piece. So this first piece, it looks like Diego Lopez did the one with, I'm assuming probably has Rope Runner from the new Firebrands, if I had to guess on feats, but maybe not. We'll see. But did miss a step. Got all those beers. Looks like a few drops might be spilled, but I think overall, the beer was retained. Or the ale, probably. It definitely has a frothy to it, but I love this image. It is a gorgeous photo.
It also has a Brazilian steakhouse skewer.
I barely... Yeah, no, definitely... Look at that! That is great! I guess when they land, they can pull it out of their mouth and then cut off like a little slice for whoever wants. I would assume it's probably mutton. It looks muttony. And then the author for this section is Dragomira Yo. Is this the one of the authors from the world, or is the author for the section the same?
This is an author from the world.
Gotcha.
So at the end of the article, there's a little bio and stat block for the author, and then credited to Irene, who actually wrote both the character and the article.
Yeah, it's very much like Irene to knock it out of the park like that. So it's not surprising and very impressive for the section, I'm not going to lie. And it has a lot in it. Like, not only do you bring in this really cool place that's happening, you have I would say this map is usable. Like, I think you could load this into Foundry, probably. It's got grid lines and everything. It's marked pretty well. So, I mean, that's a gorgeous photo. Who did the Saga, of course, as we've alluded to before, nailed it again. I love this. So this is the piratey barge, and the follow-up sections where it breaks down once again by the lineup, very professional. But I do want to take a nod at this, because as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's incredible. So Ben did this image of Balance the Konrasu pole dancer, and that is fantastic. That is so cool. Like, I just love that. And that pose can't have been easy to do, even for a Konrasu. I don't care who you are. You require a level of flexibility that I think is impressive regardless of your ancestry.
Probably, we don't usually release a full high resolution like art, because we don't want people, like pirate the print or something from the off. If the designer, we'll give them a high enough resolution to be able to use in your games on your screens and all that, but not the like 10,000 by 10,000 pixel version or something. But like, I feel like we probably need to for this, because the level of detailing that you can see that's not entirely here in the compressed version is ridiculous. I am afraid that we may have given Ben carpal tunnel doing this one. But like, it is amazing. And yeah, I can't like say enough about how great this piece is.
I mean, I definitely feel like this entire section, and again, we're coming back with, a completely different tone than the previous sections. We've gone from, romance in Margot and Beatrice's story to now we're going, we're in party mode, like we're having a good time. Like, this is very much, the levity is back, with this section. And even closing in at the end where we start to learn more about the Admiral and Dragomira, like, I feel like, first of all, the Admiral, swoon, like, Anessa, hi, how are you doing? And then Dragomira, also very, very suave. I would say that is a dope jacket for sure. But I do love fetchlings, so I already have like a soft spot for Dragomira just for that alone. But I love the fancy a drink, like to open it up, field reporter. The vibe there of being chummy about talking about, this new bar that's on a boat, and or barge, I suppose. Boat is a barge, right? Barge is a boat. But again, because we cannot give all of the love to every section that it totally deserves, as awesome as it is. We do have to move on to the Andalettas with Elham Pashra. And this is another one. It looks like you did the title thing, like similar to the Glamour Goblin section, where we let the titles imagery almost inform what we can expect from this section. And I do like that this one kind of already, it comes in a little bit jovial, I would say, as well. But I do love it. The logo it looks like Enrique de Vera, which, kudos. I do love the feathers, very pretty.
Yeah, so the idea was that this was actually this is the sign outside the
that makes a lot of sense. So outside of the bar, that makes, so this is what you would find.
And yeah, we want a very family kind of like idea, like almost like looks like an Italian restaurant. Was what I told them, but it is not. It is a platonic bar. So it's kind of like the place you go where, because Andaletta is an imperial lord, also known as Grandmother Crow, kind of a lawful good character, very much about like justice and all that. And so so this bar is kind of like, yeah, it's like a safe space where you can come with your friends and you don't have to worry about problems that may arise at bars, other types of bars, right?
Sure. That's great. I feel like that kind of comfort is, that's great. Like having that, attention to, maybe giving people a place of solace, and Grandmother Crow, that's a welcoming, to be in Grandmother Crow's company sounds like it would be a good thing, like warm and fuzzies, right?
Yeah, and so we didn't want to specifically call it out as being kind of an asexual spot or something like that, because
Sure.
While that is absolutely part of the queer identifying spectrum, we did not have anyone in the team who identified that way. We
Sure.
could kind of provide that consulting, and so we kind of didn't fully go into that, but we also wanted to give an acknowledgement, right, that even though a lot of this is about sexuality, it doesn't have to be sexual always. And so that was definitely something we wanted to make sure was represented. This is actually tied back to the party bars, which is like a kind of a femme only spot. And the Admiral, the sister of this proprietor, but like she kind of ran away from home due to a disagreement. And so like kind of the rebellious sister who kind of, is like, if you're going to be all these rules and all this, like, and this is like almost a temple that Analetta's, and I'm going to make a place where we just party all day and all night, and we can drink and eat and do whatever we want. And one thing, the content that we were planning to quote unquote patch into this issue is actually supposed to be an adventure that ties these two bars together and dives into that sister relationship and what happens there, and how you can help reconcile them or something. But
I love that. That sounds great. I don't know what you're going to call that adventure, but that sounds like a great idea.
yeah, we will let people know when it's out, but adventures take a lot of work to get right, and we didn't want to release something that was half-baked. So yeah.
Well, to the future, we will look for that. I do hope that it comes. When it comes, I'm sure we'll all be very, very hopeful to play. I think my big. Now, I do love every piece of this section. The quiet rooms, services, like just being able to kind of like highlight the way that different bars provide, patronage to the people that come to them is fantastic, in a way to kind of build in that, I guess, the feel of being what it's like to actually be in Andaletta specifically. But I do want to note that I am from Kentucky. I do love that the old fashioned is here, and it sounds delicious. It is pretty standard. I love that they go with the sugar cube, but I was thinking about it and I don't know what you would use differently. I guess you could use honey instead. But I did think about bourbon in the context of a grandmother's old fashioned, and I was like, how do they make bourbon in Galarian? And I'm sure you can, but I bet it's an interesting process. I would wonder which place would have the best water for it. So I did wanted to call out the old fashioned specifically because that's pretty cute. It's my favorite drink if I'm ordering a cocktail. So I love that that's the one that made the cut. I don't know if that was
a choice.
Who chose the cocktail, out of curiosity?
So
I'm sorry.
I have a friend from college, one of my best friends, who went through very much of a mixology phase. His name is Ansel, and so we asked him to put together a bunch of recipes, which we are, and then I was just kind of going by the names because I don't drink, but old fashioned grandma. I was like, okay, there we go. That makes sense. And so, and like the other one was like rum pirates, and so that's how this got selected. So I'm sorry there wasn't like a deeper analysis there, but yeah.
It's interesting because I feel like it still really fits. So you nailed it. I think it's still like, even though there wasn't a grander meaning behind it, like a glove, it just goes right on there. It definitely works with this section for sure.
Yeah, we will let people know when it's out.
I do. It's one of my favorite drinks if I'm ordering a cocktail. So I love that that's the one that made the cut. I don't know if that was
yeah, we still have a few more recipes to pull from when we can find good places to fit them in. So.
The next section, I'm gonna try. Helen, you're gonna have to move quick. Only show. You can show the top crossword. Vanessa put this together, and it looks. I'm never very good at these, but I may give it a shot just because I like Vanessa's work so much. Maybe it'll be easier for me to do it if I'm following these great clues. But Helen, go super fast and skip over the cheats for the next one because we don't, just in case anybody watching has not had the chance to jump in on the crossword from the first. Yeah, no spoilers. But coming to the next one right after that, we'll see these wonderful plushies from Gallant Goblin, which we got to see. It looks like the top row on the left is probably maybe the one we saw already. But they are all very, very cute. All kobolds, very cute. I do love the currently. Oh, is that a tease? It sounds like maybe in the future there might be more options.
It is a tease, yes.
All right. I mean, I will leave it at a tease then. I will note that there is only 7 of them, and there are more classes than that. So I hope to see more of these kobolds in my future. But going on to the next section, it looks like probably we have a union, which is pretty cool. Like we got a marriage going on here. I'm not sure what faith at first glance. I could make guesses. I would say maybe Serenray, but that might just be because of the fire in the background. But this image, which is fantastic, is by K Fine, and it starts into the section. It looks like we're going straight up into the credits here. But I love that this image is almost like to me. It almost feels like in a way that it's a marriage because it's a promise that each one of these books, and hopefully I'm hopeful that we're going to hear that there's a number 3 coming, that they make these promises to the readers of Queerfinder and they deliver on them, right? So I do want to say that this book is fantastic, and just doing a quick jump through the credits here. I want to make sure that maybe we take some time to either read off at least each one of these contributors and or maybe give them a little bit of time to shout out. If you wouldn't hate reading off some of these names, Grady, I think that might be the most fair way to do it, just to make sure that just in case anybody didn't get a direct call out as we were doing this interview, they get their name mentioned here at the end.
So definitely, so we got, it's alphabetical, so we got Elise D'Alessandro in LA, who did the Glamour Goblet. Oh, that is hard. That one's Theo's fault. And yeah, so we give a little bios and links to all the contributors again, just to make sure, and pictures if they wanted to give them. It was optional, because some folks aren't necessarily comfortable with that. But yeah, again, just very much wanted to highlight them and encourage folks to reach out and work with them, or even just let them know if you enjoyed their work. But yeah, we've got Azra Arbiel Hawthorne, who wrote the Desnan Night Butterflies Market, where you can do your oracle reading and get a magic item for the year ahead. And Benja, who did the art for the art for Andaletta's, art for Balance, the Karasu dancer, and then the story about Margot and Beatrice and the coloring page for them. I don't know if the scroll may be on a delay.
Oh.
It may be. I apologize if it is, but I do think that I think it's Ben, and then it goes Daniel Decina and Joey Cordero, and then it goes to the next page. It is Diego Lopez,
Okay.
and then there is Grady Wang. I think I've heard that name before. It looks like they managed this entire project, which is pretty impressive.
Oh, I believe there are several project manager or project level credits.
Fair enough.
But yeah, Diego, Irene, Isaiah, who did that beautiful art of Fiara doing the reading, the cards. Hannah or Peter Patton, who is our cover artist, Joe, who did the Zonzon doll, Kay, who did the marriage during Crystal Hue. So that was originally supposed to go with an article, but as you said, I do think it actually worked really well as that kind of closing art piece for many reasons. Michelle, of course, Nat Rose, who Anne brought on board for her article. So he did the both the art of Pandora, the ebon wing, and the gloaming star knife. Beautiful work. And then Isabel, one of our project editors, Micah, one of our project admins, and artists, of course, Saga, a cartographer, who also still has one more disco-themed map that may be patched into this issue as well. And then Sean Banerjee, who was our project manager as well and consultant. Simone Saleh, our project editor. Theo, some person who wandered in off the street. And of course Vanessa, who did a short story in Development Lace universe in issue 1, and then did the crossword for issue 2. If you'd like the crossword, there is already an issue 3 crossword that is completed. And then that weird open game license thing that we don't talk about anymore.
Yeah, and that'll be an interesting future for all of us, I think, once we do get to especially the brave new world with Orc. But I do want to say that I think that what your team and what the Queerfinder team does is amazing. Like, really, being able to put together these projects, being able to pay these writers, really, really well, and making sure that, there's that level of representation, and it's just high quality work, like top to bottom. And it's very clear in every page that this book and these issues are quite literally love letters to the fans, because they spare nothing in order to bring like a really great experience. So Helen, I don't know if you can do this for us, but can you please drop the link to Queerfinder issue number 2 into chat, just to give everybody a chance to to pick that up if they need to pick it up, and they do need to pick it up. Let me tell you, I've got it. No regrets. Like, the stories that it will inspire alone make it worth it, let alone if you get to actually use some of the crunch that's in it, which is invaluable. So that said, I mean, is there any other shout outs that, besides, obviously, we want to shout out the Gallant Goblin, since Grady and Theo were gracious enough to be here with us today. But do you all have any other additional shout outs that you wanna give today, or make nods to, besides, the Queerfinder team, which we just nodded out today? So
absolutely. I mean, just that, like, thank you to Paizo as well. They've just been so overwhelmingly supportive. We've heard from a number of the people who work there or who freelance for them, telling us like how much they like the product, and that's just incredible. Actually, I'm pretty sure this is what got me my freelancing role with Paizo in the upcoming Tian Xia books, and so that was kind of incredible. I think really shows that Paizo follows up on the promise of Infinite, that if you publish there, like, you really do get eyes on your work, and the ability to become like an Infinite master to write for Paizo or create art. Thank you to you as well, and Team Plus, like, and for
thanks.
All your kind words, like, mean a lot, because I think like the Plus products are really among the gold standards for Infinite products, right? So like, it
is very kind of to get words from what I would consider to be very much high level peers, and to say it back. But I definitely would not be saying the words about Queerfinder and what Gallant Goblin does if it was not true. Even your contributions to the community with TPK, recently being able to bring more of a presence to the Pathfinder space. I don't think the community would be better. We would be in a worse place if you all were not here to bring us up that extra notch. So I am very grateful that you were able to join us today, that we were able to talk about Queerfinder. And I want to thank you once again for coming on the show. But before I close this out, I'll tell everybody that we are. I do want to give you guys one more chance to say goodbye to everybody. But
I was just saying thank you.
yeah, of course. In 2 weeks, we'll be coming on with Archon from Archon's Archive to talk about the new Archivist class. If that wasn't enough arcs for you in one sentence. And I'm really excited to talk about that class. So if you love your blue mages, I definitely would advise people to tune in. And thank you all for tuning in today, because we had the wonderful Gallant Goblin with Theo and Grady. Please check out Queerfinder issue number 2. And thank you so much for being on the show. Next time we come back, Helen will have her voice again, I hope, and we will get to do it proper. Thanks so much.